I never thought I'd be the one posting a story like this on Reddit. But here I am, 34 years old, spilling my guts about the day my family turned their backs on me. 8 months ago, I got married to the love of my life, Ethan, in a small, sun-drenched vineyard ceremony. It was everything I'd dreamed of. Wildflowers spilling over wooden tables, laughter echoing through the warm air, and Ethan's hand in mine as we said our vows. Everyone I cared about was there. Well, almost everyone. My parents, Diane and Roger, didn't show up. Neither did my younger sister, Tessa, 29, the golden child who's been the sun in their universe since the day she was born. Their absence wasn't just a sting, it was a gut punch. And the worst part? Deep down, I wasn't even surprised. Let me back up and give you the rundown on my family. I'm Lauren, a 34-year-old graphic designer living a quiet, decent life with Ethan in a cozy apartment 2 states away from where I grew up. I've always been the other daughter, the one who didn't sparkle quite as bright as Tessa. She's been the family's pride and joy since she could toddle into a room and charm everyone in it. By age 5, she was winning every art contest, dance recital, and debate club trophy our small town could offer. High school, she was student body president, salutatorian, and homecoming queen. Tall, willowy, with this effortless beauty that landed her modeling gigs by her junior year. My parents threw a massive party when she signed her first contract, complete with a catered dinner and a blown-up photo of her first shoot that still hangs over their dining room table like some holy relic. Meanwhile, I was plugging away at my own life. I graduated with a degree in design at 22, landed a solid job at a marketing firm, and built a career I'm genuinely proud of. It's not flashy. I'm not landing corner offices or company cars, but it's mine and I love it. Still, when I told my parents about my degree, they gave me a distracted, "Good job, sweetie," before diving back into planning Tessa's next big thing. I'm shorter than her, curvier too, and my mom never let me forget it growing up. Tessa doesn't have to watch her figure, she'd say, or, "You'd look so pretty if you tried a little harder, Lauren." She'd sign me up for spin classes I hated, or nudge diet books my way at Thanksgiving. I learned to tune it out by my teens, but those words stuck like burrs under my skin. Our family dynamic wasn't subtle. Tessa was the star, and I was the understudy who never got called on stage. I spent years chasing their approval, joining the clubs they suggested, even trying out for a modeling gig once. A disaster Tessa still mocks me for. Nothing worked. By my late 20s, I gave up. I moved away, focused on my career, and built a life with friends who actually saw me. Ethan came into the picture 5 years ago at a design conference. He's a quiet, steady guy, an engineer with a knack for fixing things, including my tendency to overthink. He liked me for me, my sarcasm, my late-night sketching marathons, even the way I stress-eat popcorn during scary movies. When he proposed 3 years later, it was just us, a pizza box, and our dog snoring on the couch. Perfect. Telling my parents about the engagement was the first red flag. I called them, excited but nervous, and got silence. Then my mom said, "Are you sure about this, Lauren? Maybe wait a bit, get in shape for the dress." My dad barely grunted a response. I brushed it off, but Ethan noticed their vibe at our engagement dinner a month later. They spent half the night in the corner whispering into Mom's phone. Later, he told me he'd overheard them talking to Tessa, who was sobbing about how this wasn't supposed to happen first. Apparently, Mom had been curating Tessa's dream wedding on Pinterest for years. Venues, dresses, the works, despite Tessa not even dating anyone seriously at the time. My wedding? They couldn't care less. Planning the big day was a whirlwind. I sent out invites, digital and paper, double-checked with tracking, knowing full well my parents got them. They never RSVP'd. I texted, called, emailed. "We're busy," they'd say, or "We'll see." I didn't push too hard. Ethan's, family stepped up. His mom helping me pick a simple, stunning dress that hugged me just right. The wedding day came, and as I walked down the aisle, I scanned the crowd. Empty seats where my parents should have been. No Tessa either. It hurt, but I shoved it down. Ethan and I danced, laughed, and started our life together. I figured I'd deal with the fallout later. Little did I know that fallout was about to blow up everything I thought I understood about my family. After the wedding, Ethan and I escaped to a little cabin in the mountains for our honeymoon. 5 days of hiking, bad campfire cooking, and pretending the world didn't exist. It was bliss, but every so often, I'd catch myself staring at the empty space where my parents should have been in our photos. I'd shake it off, tell myself I didn't need them. But when we got back, reality hit like a freight train. My phone had a voicemail from Mom, her voice tight and accusing. "Lauren, we're hurt you didn't invite us." How could you leave? Us out of something so important? I froze, replaying it. What? I'd sent the invites, digital receipts confirmed they'd opened them, and the paper ones had tracking. They'd gotten them. This wasn't a mix-up, it was a lie. I called them back, hands shaking. Mom picked up, launching into a tirade about how I'd forgotten to include them, how she dreamed of planning her daughter's wedding, how I'd robbed them of that. We never got anything formal, she insisted. I pulled up the records mid-call, dates, times, delivery confirmations, and read them out. That's impossible, she snapped, but her voice wavered. Dad jumped. Gruff as ever. You must have sent it wrong. I didn't argue, I just said, I'm sorry you feel that way, and hung up. Ethan, who'd been listening, pointed out what I couldn't admit. They were gaslighting me. He'd seen it brewing for months. The way they'd acted shocked, not happy, when we got engaged. How they'd dodged every planning question with excuses. They didn't want to be there, he said quietly. Not if Tessa wasn't first. That stung worse than their absence. Tessa's shadow had loomed over me my whole life, but this was new territory. I started digging, piecing together clues I'd ignored. A cousin texted me a week later, hesitant. Hey, your mom's been telling people you didn't invite them because you were mad about Tessa. I asked what she meant. Apparently Mom and Dad had been spinning a story to the family. How I'd snubbed them out of spite. How Tessa's perfect timeline had been disrupted by my rash decision to marry. Tessa wasn't even engaged, but they'd built this fantasy where she'd always be the first, the star. My wedding? An inconvenient glitch. Then came the bombshell. Ethan overheard a call at a family barbecue we'd reluctantly attended a month before the wedding. Mom had been on speaker with Tessa, who was ranting. They can't let Lauren upstage me. It's not fair. Mom had soothed her, promising, we'll handle it. Handle it? What did that mean? I pressed Ethan for details. He'd brushed off then, not wanting to stress me out. Now it clicked. They'd chosen to skip it, not because they were busy or confused, but because my happiness threatened their narrative. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't supposed to shine. The next twist hit when Tessa got engaged 3 months after my wedding. She'd been dating some finance bro, Nate, for barely a year, but suddenly, it was all over family group chats I'd muted. Mom and Dad were ecstatic, posting about venues, dress fittings, how Tessa deserved the wedding of the century. I scrolled through screenshots friends sent me, each one a knife twist. Mom gushing about taking Tessa to a boutique I'd begged her to visit with me. Dad bragging about booking a waterfront estate. Meanwhile, my vineyard day had been cute and practical, in their words, when they bothered to mention it all. But the real kicker? Family started pulling away from Tessa's plans. My Aunt Jen called me one night, voice low. Lauren, people are talking. What your parents did at your wedding, it's not sitting right. She told me how Mom had cornered relatives at a reunion, insisting I'd lied about the invites, but Jen had seen the digital receipt I'd forwarded her months ago. They're scrambling, she said, and it's not working. Others chimed in, cousins, an uncle, even a family friend who'd offered Tessa a discount on a gown. They were backing out of her events, citing conflicts. Whispers were spreading and my parents' perfect facade was cracking. I didn't say much, just told the truth when asked. They couldn't handle me going first. But inside, I was reeling. Was this revenge unfolding without me lifting a finger? Or was something bigger brewing? Tessa's smug texts started, popping up soon after, and I knew this wasn't over. The family I'd tried to escape was about to drag me back into their mess, and I had no idea how deep it would go. The first sign that Tessa wasn't going to let this slide came a week after Aunt Jen's call. I was at home, sketching a logo for a client, when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Lauren, this is your sister. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. I'd blocked her main number after years of her snide jabs, but she'd found a way around it, probably through one of her endless contacts. I hesitated, then opened the message thread. What followed was a masterclass in Tessa's signature blend of condescension and venom. You've gone too far with Mom and Dad, she wrote. They've given us everything, and you repay them by trashing them to the family. I get that your little wedding didn't live up to your dreams, but don't take it out on me. I deserve my moment. Unlike some people, I've earned it. I stared at the screen, heat creeping up my neck. My little wedding? The day I'd poured my heart into, the day Ethan and I had made ours, reduced to a petty footnote. She went on, stop playing the victim. It's not my fault you've always been jealous of me. I didn't reply. Engaging with her was like feeding a fire, pointless and exhausting. I blocked the new number and tossed my phone aside. but Tessa doesn't do ignored. A few hours later, Ethan called me from work, barely holding in laughter. "Your sister's lost it," he said. She'd tracked down his number, likely through a mutual friend, and unleashed a barrage of texts. "As Lauren's husband, you need to rein her in," she'd written. "Family's complicated, and she's too emotional to see the big picture. Help her act right before she ruins everything." Then came the real gem. "You're new to this family, Ethan. Staying on good terms with someone like me could open doors for you both. Don't let her drag you down." He read me that one verbatim, chuckling. "Does she think I'm some ladder climber she can bribe with her business card?" We laughed about it over dinner, but beneath the humor, something shifted. Tessa wasn't just needling me. She was trying to control Ethan, too. It was a move I recognized from high school, when she'd charm my friends into ditching me if I didn't play her game. Back then, she'd flaunt her superiority. Better grades, better looks, better everything. Until my crew either worshipped her or ghosted me. Now she was pulling the same stunt with my husband, banking on him being dazzled by her success. But Ethan's not that guy. "She doesn't get me at all," he said, grinning. "I'm here for you, not her networking brunch." His response to her was perfect. "Thanks for the concern, Tessa. I'm focused on Lauren's happiness, not her behavior. Talk to her directly if you've got issues. Take care." Short, sweet, and a total shutdown. She fired back one last time. "I see she's turned you against us too. Don't say I didn't warn you when this blows up." But he didn't bite. Instead, he showed me the exchange, and we spent the night mocking her over-the-top drama. Felt good, like we dodged a bullet together. But I couldn't shake the nagging realization. Tessa hadn't changed. She was still the same calculating kid who'd sabotage me to keep her throne. The fallout started rippling wider. My cousin Mark texted me late that night. "Heads up, Tessa's pissed. She's telling people you're sabotaging her wedding." "Out of spite," I groaned. "Of course she was," Mark added. "She's saying you turned Ethan against her, and now she's got Mom and Dad calling everyone to set the record straight." I asked what they were saying. "That you're bitter your day wasn't as big as hers will be. Oh, and that you lost their invite on purpose." I laughed, bitter and sharp. Lost it? They were still clinging to that lie, even with proof staring them in the face. Then, Mark dropped a bomb. "Family's not buying it, though. People are pissed about how they treated you." He said our Uncle Dave, Dad's usually silent brother, had called him fuming. "Dave said he's done with their crap. He's out of Tessa's wedding stuff, and he's not the only one." I sat back, stunned. Was this really happening? My phone pinged again, Jen this time. "Your mom flipped out at a BBQ last night. Someone asked about your wedding and she lost it. Screamed you're tearing the family apart. It's a mess." A mess? Sure. But it wasn't my mess. Not anymore. I didn't know it then, but Tessa's little stunt with Ethan had lit a fuse. The family whispers were turning into shouts, and my parents' desperate spin was only fanning the flames. Something big was coming, I could feel it. Tessa wasn't done, and neither were they. But for the first time, I wasn't scared. I was ready. The next few days were a weird mix of calm and chaos. Ethan and I kept our routine, work, takeout, walking the dog. But the air felt charged, like a storm was rolling in. My phone stayed quiet, but I knew better than to think Tessa or my parents had let it go. Sure enough, the dam broke midweek when my cousin Mark called, his voice a mix of disbelief and glee. "Lauren, you won't believe this. Your folks are on a warpath, but it's backfiring hard." He explained how Mom and Dad had been working the family phone tree, dialing every relative with a new version of their sob story. I'd exiled them from my wedding out of jealousy, and now I was poisoning everyone against Tessa's big. "They're saying you sent their invite to some old address," he said. "Thing is, nobody's swallowing it." I snorted. They'd lived in the same split-level house since I was a kid, and their email hadn't changed since AOL was a thing. "They're desperate," Mark added. "Jen told me your mom's been crying to anyone who'll listen, saying you're out to ruin Tessa's perfect moment." Perfect moment. Tessa's engagement to Nate was barely 6 months old, and already Mom was acting like it was a royal wedding. Meanwhile, my vineyard day, 8 months past, had been dismissed as a footnote. Mark paused, then dropped the real news. Half the family's bailing on Tessa's stuff. Uncle Dave's out, Jen's out, even the dress hookup's busy. Now, it's wild. Wild didn't cover it. I'd spent years watching my parents prop Tessa up, but this was the first time I'd seen their control slip. Ethan grinned when I told him. "They built this shiny little empire," he said, "but it's all cardboard. One push and it's folding." He was right. Their perfect family act, Mom's gushing, Dad's quiet nods, Tessa's spotlight, had always been flimsy, held together by everyone playing along. Now, people weren't. I didn't have to lift a finger. The truth was doing the work for me. Then came the BBQ meltdown. My Aunt Jen texted me a play-by-play the morning after. It had been a casual family thing, potluck, lawn chairs, kids running around. Someone, a distant cousin who didn't know the drama, asked Mom about my wedding pics. Big mistake. Jen said. Mom's face went red, then she erupted. Lauren's changed since she got married. She's trying to destroy us, she'd yelled, loud enough to stop the chatter. She's jealous of Tessa, always has been. Daddy stood there, arms crossed, nodding like a bobblehead while she ranted about my betrayal. Jen wrote, "It was unhinged. People just stared. Then your Uncle Dave walked out." I could picture it. Mom's voice pitching higher, Dad's silent backup, the awkward hush. But what Jen said next floored me. It didn't land like she wanted. People started whispering about your wedding, how they skipped it. Your cousin Lisa even asked why they'd lie about the invites. Your mom stormed off after that. I sat there, rereading the text. Lisa? Quiet, keep the peace, Lisa. If she was calling them out, the tide was really turning. Ethan peeked over my shoulder. "They're digging their own grave," he said, half smirking. "Keep watching." He wasn't wrong. The next day, Uncle Dave called me, a rare move. He's the stoic type, always dodging family drama. "Lauren," he started, voice gruff. "I owe you an apology. I should have said something years ago. The way they've treated you, it's bullshit." I blinked, caught off guard. "I saw it growing up," he went on. "Tessa this, Tessa that, your stuff?" Barely a nod. "I stayed quiet to keep things smooth, but after your wedding? Nah, I'm done." He said he'd told Dad he wasn't going to Tessa's engagement party, or anything else. "Half the family's with me," he added. "Your parents screwed up and they know it." I thanked him, voice shaky. It wasn't just validation, it was proof their grip was slipping. But the high didn't last. That night, Tessa texted. Again, this time from Nate's phone. "You're loving this, aren't you?" it read. "Turning everyone against me? You're pathetic, Lauren. Enjoy your little win. It won't last." The venom wasn't new, but the timing was off. Why? Now? Then it hit me. She'd heard about the BBQ, the defections. She was rattled. For once, she wasn't the untouchable star. I didn't reply, blocked the number and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. Her words gnawed at me, not because they hurt, but because they hinted at something bigger. She wasn't done fighting. By morning, rumors were flying. Jen texted. "Your mom's calling an emergency family meeting this weekend. They're freaking out. Tessa's venue might be off the table." Off the table? That waterfront? State was their crown jewel. If it was slipping, their whole plan was unraveling. I didn't know what they'd pull next, but one thing was clear. They were cornered, and cornered people get desperate. Ethan squeezed my hand as I stared at message. "Whatever's coming," he said. "We've got this." I nodded, but my gut twisted. The storm was here, and it was about to get ugly. The emergency family meeting hit like a thunderclap that Saturday. Jen tipped me off Friday night. "Your parents are hosting at their place. They're begging everyone to come, saying, 'It's to clear the air. Tessa's pushing it too.'" I laughed, bitter and short. Clear the air? More like patch their sinking ship. Ethan raised an eyebrow when I told him. "You going?" he asked. I didn't want to. Every instinct. Screamed to stay away, to let their mess implode without me. But something, curiosity maybe, or a flicker of old hope, pulled me in. "I need to see this through," I said. He nodded, grabbing his keys. "Then I'm with you." We drove the 2 hours to my parents' house in near silence, my mind racing. What were they planning? A guilt trip? A public shaming? By the time we pulled into their driveway, the street was lined with cars. Uncles, aunts, cousins, even some family friends I hadn't seen in years. The air buzzed with tension as we walked in. Mom greeted us at the door, her smile tight and fake. "Lauren, Ethan, glad you made it," she said like we were late for brunch. Dad grunted a hello, avoiding my eyes. Tessa stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, her fiancé Nate hovering awkwardly nearby. The room was packed, maybe 30 people, all shifting in their seats or sipping coffee, waiting for the show. Mom started it. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice quivering with rehearsed emotion. "We've had some misunderstandings lately, and it's tearing us apart. We need to set things straight." She glanced at me, then away. "Lauren's wedding. It's been twisted into something it's not. We never got an invite. Something got lost, and she's used that to paint us as the bad guys." Dad nodded solemnly. "We'd never miss her day on purpose," he added. "She's our daughter too." The lie hung there, bold and brittle. I felt Ethan tense beside me, but I stayed quiet, letting them dig. Tessa jumped in, her tone sharp. "It's gone too far," she said. "Lauren's been spreading stories, turning people against me, against us. My wedding's falling apart because of it. Venues are canceling, families bailing. It's not fair." She glared at me, daring me to bite. Whispers rippled through the room. I caught Jen's eye. She looked pissed. Uncle Dave shifted, arms crossed. The air was thick, ready to snap. Then I did something I'd never done before. I stood up. "You're right," I said, voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. "There's a misunderstanding, but it's not the invites." I pulled out my phone, opened the tracking receipts, digital and paper, and held it up. "You got them, both kinds. Opened the emails, signed for the mail, stop lying." Mom's face went white. Dad sputtered. "That's not," but I cut him off. "I'm not here to argue tech, I'm here to say what I've held in for years." The room went dead silent. I turned to them, Mom, Dad, Tessa, and let it pour out. "I've spent my life watching you worship Tessa. Her art shows, her promotions, her every breath. My wins? A pat on the head if I was lucky. When I got married, you couldn't even pretend to care, not because you weren't invited, but because it wasn't her. You skipped it to protect your story, and now you're mad it's crumbling." My voice cracked, but I pushed on. "I envied Tessa. Not her job, not her looks, but the love you gave her that you never bothered with for me." Mom gasped, clutching her chest. "That's not true. We treated you the same." I laughed, sharp and raw. "The same? You canceled my graduation dinner for her modeling callback. Her prom dress cost more than my textbooks. You planned her fantasy wedding while dodging mine." Dad tried to interrupt. "You're exaggerating." But I kept going. "I begged you to care, you didn't. And now you're shocked people see through you?" Tessa lunged forward, eyes blazing. "You're ruining everything. My wedding's a wreck because of your pity party." I met her stare. "No, Tessa. It's a wreck because you all built this on sand. I didn't turn anyone against you. They just stopped pretending." She froze, mouth open. Then Mom snapped. "We never thought you'd stoop this low, Lauren. Ruining your sister out of spite? That's not how we raised you." That broke me open. "You're right," I said, voice low. "You raised me to think I'd never measure, that Tessa's shine mattered more than my heart. But you also taught me I deserve better, and I'm done begging for it." Dad's face hardened. "If you think we're such awful parents, maybe we should stop trying. You're clearly happy watching us fall." Mom's parting shot. "We tried to love you both equally, Lauren. You chose to play victim." I didn't argue. I just said goodbye and walked out, Ethan's hand in mine. The room erupted behind us, shouts, gasps, chairs scraping. As we hit the driveway, Jen caught up, breathless. That was insane. They're unraveling in there, Tessa's screaming, your mom's crying. Half the family's with you. I nodded, numb. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I exhaled, shaky but free. "Yeah, it's over." But it wasn't. Tessa's next move was already brewing, and it'd be her boldest yet. The drive home from that meeting felt like shedding a skin. I'd worn too long. Ethan cranked the radio, and we didn't talk much, just let the miles blur by. I'd said my piece, faced them head on, and walked away. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for their approval, or dreading their next move. But Tessa? She wasn't wired to let anything go. 2 days later, my phone lit up with a text from Jen. "Brace yourself. Tessa's gone nuclear." I sighed, expecting another rant. What I got was a blindsiding twist that turned this whole mess into something I never saw coming. Jen forwarded me screenshots from a family group chat I'd long muted. Tessa had posted a novella, a tear-soaked manifesto about how I'd destroyed her life. "Lauren's lies have cost me everything," she wrote. "My wedding's off. Nate left me because of the drama she stirred up. Mom and Dad are heartbroken and it's all her fault." My jaw dropped. Nate dumped her. I scrolled further. She claimed I'd slandered them to the family, that my jealous vendetta had unraveled her perfect future. "I tried to help her," she added, "but she's too bitter to see reason." The kicker, she'd tagged every relative, begging them to see the truth. I called Jen, stunned. "Is this for real?" She laughed, dry and sharp. "Oh, it's real. Nate bailed last night, said he couldn't handle the circus. Tessa's spiraling, and your parents are in damage control mode." She paused. "But here's the thing, nobody's buying her martyr act. People saw what went down at the meeting. She's done." I hung up, reeling. Ethan peeked at the screenshots, whistling low. "She's throwing a Hail Mary," he said, "and it's crashing." The fallout was swift and brutal. Uncle Dave texted me, "Tessa's wedding's toast. Venue pulled out, caterer too. Families. Done with her crap," Mark chimed in. Your mom's calling it a misunderstanding, but it's too late. People are pissed. Even Lisa, the peacemaker, sent a quiet, "I'm sorry, Lauren, I'm out too." It wasn't just Tessa's plans collapsing. It was the whole facade. Years of moms gushing, dads enabling, Tessa's preening, it all imploded under the weight of their own lies. I didn't gloat. I just watched, oddly detached, as the truth I'd spoken ripped through their world like a wildfire. Then Tessa made her last play. She showed up at our apartment unannounced. Banging on the door Wednesday night, Ethan answered, wary while I hovered behind him. She looked wrecked, hair messy, eyes red, but her voice was pure venom. "You happy now?" she spat. "Nate's gone, my wedding's dead, everyone hates me. This is what you wanted, right?" I stepped forward, calm but firm. "No, Tessa, I wanted you to see me. You all chose this, skipping my day, lying about it, twisting everything. I didn't ruin you. You did." She laughed, shrill and unhinged. "You're delusional. I tried. To fix this, talked to Ethan, begged you to stop. You're the one who couldn't handle me winning." Ethan cut in, voice low. "She didn't need to handle anything. You tried manipulating me and it flopped. Own it." Her eyes flashed, but she deflated, like the fight was draining out. "You'll regret this," she muttered, then turned and left. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No anger, no triumph, just a quiet void where her shadow used to loom. The next week was a blur of updates. Jen said Mom and Dad had gone silent. No more calls, no more spin. Family gatherings shrank. People picked sides and most landed on mine without me asking. Tessa vanished from the group chats, her social media dark. Nate's exit wasn't just the drama, Mark heard. He'd been on the fence for months, and my parents' meltdown at the meeting was the last straw. Their perfect daughter wasn't enough to keep him. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ethan and I talked it over one night, sprawled on the couch with takeout. "Think they'll ever come around?" I asked, half dreading the answer. He shrugged. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter. You've got what you need right here." He was right. The weight I'd carried, years of chasing their love, was gone. I hadn't won some grand revenge. I'd just stopped playing their game. Tessa's collapse, their isolation. It wasn't my doing, it was theirs, unraveling the second they couldn't control the story anymore. Looking back, the real twist wasn't Nate leaving or the wedding dying. It was me, 34, flawed, and finally, free, standing taller than their golden child ever could. I'd built a life with Ethan, with friends who saw me, and that was enough. Maybe they'd call someday, maybe not. Either way, I was done waiting. The curtain fell on their stage, not mine, and for once, I wasn't in the audience. Thanks, Reddit, for the push to face this. You gave me the guts to speak and it changed everything. Stick around. Life's weird, and I might have more to tell. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.